This week, the issue of the week on the Haverford 7 show is a continuation, a follow-up on the story of the development taking place on Harvard Road, the extension of Harvard Road into this new development where 7 new homes are being built. And if you've been following the story, you'll know that a couple of weeks ago, we got involved at the request of local residents, especially along Washington Avenue, but also on Harvard Road, because of a very strong smell of petroleum. They felt that their concerns were not being addressed and that they were not being taken seriously or being heard. And so as a result, this story unfolded and lots of attention has been generated. That actually culminated last Friday, May 15th, with the attention of including some of the communication that we've been sending to Representative Greg Vitale's office. Representative Vitale invited members of the EPA and DEP representatives to come and meet with the public at the end of Harvard Road, right at the entrance of this development site, which was a very good development, obviously, since what's been lacking is clear communication and good information. So by bringing everyone together, we were hoping to reach a place of resolution where people could get their questions asked and answered. As Representative Vitale said, it was his opportunity to get up to speed and make sure he was understanding the concerns of the residents, as well as the status update from both of these, the federal and the state level agencies that are responsible for environmental situations. So let me give you the quick rundown of the important highlights. So EPA's job in this scenario is to look for immediate danger and rule out that there's any kind of imminent threat to the health and well-being of local residents. DEP's job is then to step in and deal with the longer-term part of the process. So the representative from EPA, Mr. Rupert, reported that the initial findings were that this was oil, basically. It was a form of diesel fuel that was fairly old and weathered, and a form of lubricating oil. The determination by EPA is that there is not an imminent threat or imminent danger because of this contamination. However, there is the potential threat of health consequences due to long-term exposure, and that it therefore has to be remediated. That then gets handed over to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. They now are the oversight organization. And there is now a site coordinator. There's a geologist from DEP who is in charge of the point person basically on the project at this point. And they're going to work together with the developer, which is Harvard 7 LLC. And the developer is now going to be responsible. They have a period of time to do an assessment of the extent of the contamination and implement a remediation plan to essentially remove the contamination and bring it down to the acceptable standards of this Act 2 recycling program. Quick historical note, just to be accurate, this already was an Act 2 land recycling program quite some time ago, but that goes back to when the original underground tanks from the McCandless Fuel Oils Company were removed. There was contamination because these were old steel tanks that had leaked essentially. That was remediated. The contaminated soil was removed. There was a 2-year period of monitoring, which kind of ended in about 2002 with what they call a closure letter. So basically the project was done at that point. In that letter, they stated that if this property were to be developed for residential purposes and the developer started excavating and discovered or encountered any new contamination, that it would be the developer's responsibility to see that that was remediated. And that, of course, is exactly what happened when they started digging deep enough to get down to where they were going to start getting to foundation depth. They hit this oil. That was when residents started smelling this strong smell, got very concerned, obviously, and caused us all to start paying a lot more attention. So we did a story about that. Some of the other local media did a story about that. We got in touch with DEP and EPA. And along the way, we were forwarding information to Representative Greg Vitale's office, as was the original person in the neighborhood who was calling attention to it. So long story short, I'm trying to keep it short, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. DEP is now in charge of overseeing this. It is now reopened as an Act 2 land recycling program, and this will be a coordinated venture with the developer. Now, at this meeting, what I've decided to do is I'm going to give you the entire meeting that we videotaped. It's about an hour long. It is definitely worth your time to watch it because there's a lot of interesting question and answer that takes place. You'll see the concerns of local residents and the kinds of question they're asking, and some of the issues that come out. Now, I'm going to pull out excerpts later on for some follow-up pieces on this, not so much specifically about Harvard Road. If more comes up about that, we'll certainly continue talking about it. What I'm most interested in is some of the bigger issues that come out of this dynamic that you'll see in this conversation. For example, it's interesting that we have Representative Vitale there, we have representatives from the federal government there, we have representatives from the state government, but what's not there is any representation from our actual own township. This is where this whole project starts. Is there's a developer and there's a township that agrees to that this plan makes sense, and then there are the residents. And so what I'm interested in is how we all communicate, how we all either do or don't work together, how we do or don't listen to each other, how we do or don't treat each other with openness, honesty, clarity, respect, and so forth. So there's some interesting question and answer, and I like I said, I will pull out that excerpt and we'll do a separate piece on that shortly. So I encourage you to watch the entire hour. There's lots of good stuff, but again, the highlight is no immediate imminent threat to human health. There is contamination. There's the potential, therefore, for long-term exposure if nothing were to happen, but something is going to happen now. And I pat you all collectively on the back for that. I would certainly have known nothing about this story, even though it's less than a mile from my house here, but I would not have known anything about it if a concerned resident had not called my attention to it, because I'd started the show and was trying to create this vehicle for us to bring information in and then broadcast it back out so that we all know what's going on in our own neck of the woods. So I applaud you all for doing that. I mean, this is, to me, the experiment working. This is communication happening. This is the voices of our community speaking out and getting attention of the powers that be and getting the oversight, because it's about keeping ourselves healthy and safe and functioning and growing and developing. We're all in favor of development, but we want it done healthy and in a safe manner. But again, I think it's a bit troubling that the township had no representation there. I think it's also troubling that the developer chose not to send a member of the company there. Full credit to Mr. Jeffrey Steigerwalt, the original developer who sold this off to the current developer. So he's not actually a part of this company at this point. He is actually planning to live on this site. So he is one of the concerned residents who was there at this meeting asking questions, but also shedding light on some of the older history that when he first took on the first part of the project and developed the actual sites and got approval and then sold it to the developer who is now moving forward to build these 7 homes. So more about Mr. Steigerwalt coming in the future. We're trying to line up a one-on-one interview with Mr. Steigerwalt, as well as a completely separate project that he's involved with potentially over at the old Lanark School in the Lanark section, which is also a very interesting story. So that's still in the process of unfolding, so we'll see if the project's going to move forward, and we'll talk further with Jeffrey Steigerwalt about that. So watch the video. Pat yourselves on the back. Continue to please participate in this. This is, I keep saying, your show, and it is. I'm just the mouthpiece here. I'm just the guy with the camera willing to speak out, and I have enough technical background to create the websites, create the social media connections, but none of this works without your continued participation. I want to be very clear. I'm wearing my patriotic garb today because I'm recording this. It is primary day. I hope you got out to the polls. I don't care what party you belong to. I don't care if you belong to no party. Of course, if you belong to no party, I guess you can't go to the polls today because Pennsylvania only lets you participate if you belong to a party. That's part of what this show is about as well. As many of you know at this point, I am actually running for commissioner in the 7th Ward. This is not a political program, and this will not be a program where there's any campaigning of any sort. So I only raise that for full disclosure because people have obviously been talking about it, and it's never been a secret. This show is open to anyone of any party, of any, because I'm actually very committed to the concept that local government should not be governed by parties. It should be governed by its citizens and by its elected officials and by its township. And this is about communication on issues. We should not care whether we are on the red team or the blue team. We should care about being on the Haverford Township team. That's what just happened, and that's why I say pat yourselves on the back. Concerned citizens raised an issue. I helped to broadcast that issue. We got the involvement of various branches of our government to step in and make sure that things are properly being done. Looks very much like we're on the right, healthy path to doing that. So this is working the way it should work. And I'm not even, it's public information. I don't care what party I belong to. I don't care what party you belong to. What I care is that I'm your neighbor, you're my neighbor, and we all live in the same very small community where we have issues that are important to us. We have differences of opinion, and we should very vocally argue those to a point of compromise. We should come to a place where we can actually get things done. And that's the problem with the red team, blue team mentalities, that we're not getting things done. We're just trying to block each other. You see this all across all levels of government, including at the local level. There's really no point to that, guys. I mean, that is old world thinking of a bygone era. We are in 2015 here and moving forward, and this is about open, honest communication. We've all got cell phones. We've all got Facebook. We've all got Twitter. We've all got YouTube. It's not about parties anymore. It's about people. And it should always have been about people, and I think it is about people. So if you resonate with that, then forget about who's running and who's not running. Communicate, participate, because you have so much more power than you're given credit for. A big part of that power is showing up at the polls. So again, I really hope you vote. I don't care who you're voting for or what. I want you to participate and engage, and I want you to do that here too. This is your show. Doesn't matter what color. And that's why, again, if you look carefully, the whole theme of the show is red and blue, bleeding into purple in the middle. That's not an accident. So again, long story short, keep participating, keep making this your show, keep sharing it if you resonate with that. If you want to argue back, please do. Hey, I love to argue. Ask anybody who knows me well. I really actually enjoy debate and communication. And that's why I can't stop talking. So I'm going to sign off now. This is Dr. Mark Kosman signing off from the 7th Ward of Haverford Township.